If you're looking for a beautiful star pendant, ornament, or brooch, and you have a little bit of time on your hands, you are definitely in the right place. Check out the materials below, and then we'll get started. We're going to start with our 3 millimeter pearl that's going to be at the center of our design. Using your needle and thread, you're going to pick up that 3 millimeter pearl and 5 of the 11-0 seed beads. We're going to let this fall down to towards the end of our thread, and you want to leave a little bit of tail thread here. I like to just hold on to this for now because I'll come back and tie it later after a couple steps here. So I'm just going to hold on to this and take my needle and go back through the pearl. As we do this, you'll see that these 5 beads are going to get pulled towards the pearl and start to kind of sit around that pearl to form a little border or frame around the pearl. Pick up 5 more of your seed beads of these 11-0s, and then we're going to go through the pearl again. And again here, as we pull the thread through, we'll see that we have now 5 seed beads on either side of the pearl. Pass through 5 of the seed beads, and we're going to connect the 2 sets of 5. So we're going to pass through the seed beads here on one side and continue straight through to the seed beads on the other side, passing through all 10 and pulling them together. And as you pass through all 10 and you pull them together, you'll see that it'll start to form a nice little seamless circle or halo of 10 seed beads around your pearl here in the middle. I like to go around a couple times here just to help pull everything together. I find that if you go through more than once, it helps to get rid of any slack, helps to just tighten up your design. Once my needle and thread match up with that tail thread, I'm going to tie a little knot. I'm actually going to tie 2 knots. 2 knots will hold much better than 1 knot. 1 knot will just very easily come undone, so 2 knots will hold it more secure. So now I've got this first little part complete. I have my 3 millimeter in the center, and I have 10 little seed beads forming a nice little halo around there. So get to this point here, and then we're going to start with our herringbone that we're going to use to form little arms or little branches off of the center. Once we have our little halo of 10 seed beads around our center pearl, we're going to start making those little branches. Pass through a couple of your seed beads, and I like to pass through a couple just so that I'm not working directly next to my knot. And we're going to pick up 2 more 11-0s and pass through the 11-0 where your thread is coming out. You're going to pass through that 11-0 one more time. And as you pull your thread, you should see that those 2 seed beads now sit directly on top of that 11-0. Pass through the next 2 seed beads. And we're going to repeat the same. Pick up 2 11-0s, pass through the same 11-0, pull that tight, and then pass through the next 2. Again here, pick up 2 11-0s, back through the same 11-0 here around our pearl, and we're going to add those 2 seed beads right onto that seed bead sitting directly below. Pass through the next 2 seed beads, 2 more, back through the 11-0, and through the next 2 11-0 seed beads. Now you're not, if you're about where I am, you'll see that we're going to pass next to that knot. So just give it a little push if that knot is getting in the way. and pick up 2 more 11-ohs, back through the 11-oh here where our thread is coming out, and pull. And now you can see that we have the start of our little branches. It's not going to look like much right now because we don't have much structure, but you'll see that you have a nice little even circle here of branches. If you pass through the next 2 seed beads, you should now be coming out of the 11-oh where you first added the 2 seed beads to start your branch. I'm going to flip this over here, and I like to hold this so that my thread is coming out here on the right. And if I look at this 11-oh seed bead here, I have my little branch started above, and I have a right and a left bead. I'm going to pass up from the bottom to the top, so I'm going away from me here with the needle. I'm going to go through that right bead. I'm going to pick up 2 of my 11-ohs, and then I'm going to go down through the left bead. So what I'm doing here is adding a stack. I'm starting to stack these beads now. So I have 2 more 11-ohs sitting directly on top of the 2 11-ohs that I added in the last step. I'm going to pick up 1 of my delicas, and I'm going to go over here to the next branch, and I'm going to go up through that 11-oh on the right. I'm going to pick up 2 seed beads, and I'm going to repeat the same step here where I go down through the left bead and pull those beads tight, pick up a delica, and moving on here to the next branch, go up through the right, that right bead, and pick up 2 seed beads. And I'm just using the 11-ohs now. Down through the left, pick up another delica, up through the right bead, down, pick up 2 11-ohs, down through the left bead here, pick up a delica, up through the right side of the branch, pick up 2 seed beads, and down through the left side. I'm going to pick up 1 11-oh delica here again. And now I'm back to the first branch where I started this row. So instead of going up through 1 11-oh, I'm going up through 2 because I've added that second one in this step. So now I'm back to my first branch, and I'm coming up through the 2 11-oh seed beads on the right. So I'm ready now to start my next row. So go ahead and get to this point, and we'll continue on with the next row. When you're ready for the third row, we're going to begin here with our thread coming out of the right side of the branch. And we're going to pick up 2 11-oh seed beads and go down through the left side of the branch and just through that first seed bead. So you'll be coming out of the first seed bead here on the left side. Now we just added 2 seed beads above that. So you're going to count 1, 2 seed beads, and then your thread should be coming out. We're going to pick up a delica, and then we're going to pass through the delica sitting here in between our branches that we added on the last step, and pick up 1 more delica, and we're going to go through the 11-oh here at the top on the right. So we're going to always go through, as we do our herringbone here, we're going to always go through the top or the last bead on this little branch. So you're always going through that very end 11-oh seed bead. Pick up 2 more seed beads, 2 more 11-ohs, and down through the left side of the branch, just through that one seed bead. Again, pick up a delica, and we're going to pass through the delica here at the center, or I should say between the branches. Pick up one more delica, and then through that 11-0 on the right of our branch. We're going to continue here, following those steps, until we get back to the beginning in our first branch. And remember that when you get to your back to your first branch, you're going to go through not just one 11-0 at the top, you're going to go through two, because you're going to go through the delica below and the 11-0 below and the 11-0 that you just added in the step that you just did. So you're going through the first seed bead, or the very end seed bead of the branch, for 4 of your branches, and the very last one here that you come to, you're going to actually do a step up, so you're going through 2. I'm going to continue here and do the next 3 branches, and then I'll show you again how we do that step up. So for anybody who is not familiar with this concept of stepping up in the rows, all stepping up means is that you're going from one row to the other, and so it just looks a little bit different when you do that. Here's my first branch where my row begins, and here I am on my 5th branch. I just added those 2 seed beads on my little branch, and I'm going to pick up my delica, go through the delica here between my branches, and pick up another delica. And now you can see what I'm talking about here with stepping up is that this step up is going to look different, or this connection here that I make, it's going to look a little bit different than what I did with the other 4 connections as I go from branch to branch. Instead of going up through one 11-0 here on the branch at the end, I'm going to go through 2, because I've added an 11-0 in the step in the row that I just did. So that is really all stepping up is it is transitioning from one row to the next, and it just looks a little bit different because you usually have another bead to go through, or depending on your pattern, it may look a little bit different, but that's the only, that's really just what a step up is. So here I am now. I have 3 rows or layers here of 11-0 seed beads on all of my branches, and I'm going to continue here with the next row. So go ahead and get to this point and we'll move on to the next row. For our next row, we're going to continue building our branches as we have in the past on the last couple rows here, picking up 2 seed beads, 2 11-0s, and going down through the left side of the branch through 1 seed bead. I'm going to pick up 1 delica here, and now I'm going to pass through the delica, the first delica here that I added in my last row. And I'm going to pick up a 15-0 here and pass through the next delica, pick up 1 more delica, and go through the 11-0 here at the end of my branch. And now I'm ready to repeat that again, meeting back at the first branch here for the next row. Continue on with this step, and after we get back to the first branch again, we'll start building the next row. For our next row here, we're going to continue our branch as normal, picking up 2 11-0s, and then going down through the left side of the branch, pick up 1 delica, pass through the next delica, pick up a 15-0 seed bead, pass through the 15-0 seed bead here that we added in the last row, pick up another 15-0, through the delica, and pick up another delica here, and through the right side of our branch. Repeat these steps for the next 4 sections, and then we'll move on to the next row. You'll notice that for this next row, I've swapped out the 11 O's that I had over here for 15 O's. They're the same color. So for me, that is the galvanized champagne color. I'm just swapping out the 11 O's that I've been using for some 15 O's. This is where I'm going to start thinning my branch. And right in this row here is where we're going to start shaping the star a little bit more. We're going to pick up 2 15 O's, and just like we've done previously, go down through that left side of the branch. So now you've got the 2 15 O's that you've added sitting directly above the 11 O's, and the rest of this branch will be 15 O's. Pick up a delica, go through the delica, and these little branches can be very easy to catch your thread on. So just be careful that you don't catch your thread on little branches. Anytime you're working with a piece that has little branches or offsets or anything like that, little pieces there that hang out, very easy to catch your thread on. So you have to be careful about that. Pick up 1 15 O, and we're going to pass through both of the 15 O's that we added in the last step. This will pull those two together and will start to help pulling the branches in closer to each other to help give it a little bit of that shape that we're looking for. Pick up another 15 O, pass through the delica, pick up another delica, and here we are back to our branch, and we're going to pick up, pass through that 11 O at the end of the branch. We're going to start over here again at the beginning of that step, picking up 2 15 O's, and continue until we're back to our first branch. After this last step here that we did, you'll start to see that the branches are starting to pull in on each other, and it's not sitting as flat. So it's sort of cupping here, and that's exactly what we want, because we're creating a shape here, not just creating a flat star. This next row, we're going to start again by picking up 2 of our 15 O's in the branch color and going down through the left side of the branch. Pick up a delica, go through the delica, pick up a 15 O in this color here for the center, pick up another 15 O, and go through the delica, the 15 O here across the other side of this little V here in the center. Pick up another 15 O, pass through the delica, pick up another delica, and through the 15 O here at the end of our branch. And begin again here by picking up 2 15 O's and continue those last steps, this last step that we did until we get back to the first branch again. After the last row, you should see that this is starting to cup a lot more, kind of starting to form a little bowl shape, and that's exactly what we want. For the next row here, we're going to start again by picking up the 2 15 O's in our branch color, going down through the left side of our branch, pick up a delica, and pass through the delica, pick up a 15 O, and pass through the next 15 O, and continue here with the basic peyote here where we're picking up another 15 O, go through the next 15 O, pick up a 15 O, and go through the next 15 O, pick up one more 15 O here, and go through the delica, And as you do this, you can give it a little tug just to pull that thread kind of tight, and that will help to pull your branches together and help to give it that shape that we want. Pick up one more delica here and go through the right side of our branch. So repeat that step until we get back to the first branch, and we'll continue. The next few rows are only going to be using the delicas and the 15-0 in the branch color. So you can see here that I removed the red 15-0s that I was working with. For this next row, we're going to pick up 2 15-0s and go down through the left side of our branch. Pick up a delica and pass through the delica. And now we're going to pass through the next delica and the 15-0s at the edge. All the 15-0s here on the edge of our center little triangle of the 15-0s. So I'm passing through all these 15-0s on the outside edge. They're all of the 15-0s here. There's 4 of them, the ones that are kind of poking up. So you will actually see a little bit of thread between the 15-0s because working this center little triangle here in a peyote stitch, you would normally be adding beads in between each of those. But here we're skipping that and we're just passing through those 4 beads all the way on the edge here, on the outside edge, and using our thread here to just kind of cinch it together. I'm going to pass through the next 2 delicas, pick up a delica, and go through the 15-0 here at the end of the branch on the right side of that branch. And you can see here I'm extending the branches, but I'm not extending or building this little center triangle anymore. So I'm done with that section, and I'm just going to work on extending the branches for the next couple rows here. Continue on here until we get back to the first branch. For the next row, we're going to repeat what we did in the last row. I'm going to pick up 2 15-0s and go down through the left side of my branch. Pick up 1 11-0, 1 delica, and I'm going to pass through 3 delicas this time. Last time around I went through 2, but on the last row we added 1, so I'm passing through 3 delicas and through those same 4 15-0s here between my branches. And then up the side here through the 3 delicas. Here I'm going to pick up another delica and go through the right side of my branch. Repeat that step until we get back to the first branch. For our last step going around here, working on our branches on our star, we're going to work with just our 15-0s here in the branch color. We're going to pick up 1 of the 15-0s and go down through the 2 15-0s on the left side of the branch. So here all we're doing is adding 1 15-0 at the end of the branch to taper it and give it a nice end. We're going to continue here passing through the beads that we passed through between the branches on the last step. So as you pass through these 15-0s again, if you're feeling like it gets a little tight in here, go ahead and switch to a size 11 or 12 needle if you've not already done so. And we're going to continue on here. So you'll see that you probably are even making this a little tighter every time you pass through these 15-0 seed beads. If you feel any sort of friction, definitely switch to that size 11 or 12 needle if you're not already using that. so that you don't break your beads. And pass through our delicas here. Pass through the two 15-0s at the end of the branch on the right side. Pick up another 15-0 and down through the two 15-0s on the left side. So here I've added the tip here or the end of two of my branches. Continue along here until we get back to the start. Now that we've completed this star, we're going to just tie off our thread. So if I flip over here to the other side of the star here, which is the front, you can see how I was working on this concave side here. If I flip over to the front, it's a little easier to get through my beads. And I'm just going to pass down through some of my delicas here on the side and tie off my thread. So to tie off your thread, there are a couple different methods, but the method that oops, you can see here my thread's almost coming out of my needle there. The method that I like to use is simply going through the beads, taking your needle and thread, and tie around some of the bridge thread that's sitting between your beads. So that bridge thread is really just the thread that's running through your beads. So you're not actually passing through beads to tie the knot, you're just tying a little knot around the thread that's running through the beads there. And you can tie a knot or two. I like to take my needle and thread through a couple more beads just to take that end away from the knot. And then on the back side here, I'll burn that down. So now this is the completed star, and we're going to start working on our Rivolis to then build this out a little bit. You can see that off camera, I have been really busy bezeling chatons. I have 4 chatons that I've already added to my star, and I'm going to walk you through here how to do the bezel and attach it to the star, and that will be my 5th one here to round this out. So let's dive into the bezeling. You're going to use your 15-0 seed beads here. You can really use any color that you want to. I'm using the same color that I used for the little branches because I like using that color to just tie everything together and continue that. But of course, you can use any color that you want to. You're going to start here by picking up a stop bead, so just one of your 15-0s, and let that go down towards the end of your thread, and pass through that bead one more time, allowing the thread to just kind of loop around that bead, and then you just need a couple inches or so after your bead of thread. Now we're going to pick up an additional 20 beads. So we'll have a total of 21 beads. I've got 10 here. Need another 10. I want multiples of 3. And so 21 here is going to get me there, and it's going to be the perfect size for the bottom side of my bezel, the underneath section. So I'm taking my needle and thread here, going through my stop bead, and then I'm going to pass through another bead or two so that I'm just not working right next to the stop bead. I'm going to now pick up 3 of my 15-0s, and I'm going to pass through the 15-0 where my thread is coming out. So what I'm doing here is I'm picking up those 3 beads and letting those 3 beads sit directly on top of the 11-0 in my little circle here of 21 beads. And as you do that, you'll see that you've got a little triangle here that's formed. So you have the 2 beads on the side that sits right to left, and then you've got the bead here on the top that sits by itself, kind of like the peak in your triangle. We're gonna pass through the next 3 beads, the next 3 15-ohs, pick up another 3 seed beads, and again we're gonna pass through that 15-oh, and continue on here through the next 3 beads. We're going to continue adding these little triangles or these little prongs all the way around our circle of 21 beads. So once we get back to the beginning here, we'll move on to the next step. You should now have a total of 7 prongs all around your center. Your thread is probably coming out of that 15-oh below your first prong if you just finished your last prong. Take your needle and thread and go through the next few seed beads in your project here, and this will bring you out through the 15-oh at the bottom of the next prong. I like to go through an extra little section there, an extra few beads, only because it just cinches everything up. It makes things a little bit tighter. It makes it easier to pull your thread ends if you're close or if you go a little bit past the point where you started. So now coming out of the 15-oh at the base of one of your prongs, we're going to go through the first and the second 15-oh in the prong. So this will bring you out through the 15-oh here at the top at the peak here of your triangle. We're now going to connect all of these prongs with some seed beads. So you're going to connect all of the prongs through that top 15-oh seed bead there at the top of the prong, and we're going to connect them with 3 seed beads. Pick up 3 15-ohs and go through the 15-oh at the top of the next prong, and pick up another 3 through the prong, and continue here all the way around until we get back to where we started. As you do this, you'll notice that the sides will start to curl in, and that's exactly what you want. The prongs will be sitting on the side of the Rivoli, and the section that we're adding now, this layer, will pull inwards around the around the Rivoli, so that we can hold the Rivoli in place. So here I'm on my last section here that I need to connect. Pick up 3 and pass through that 15-oh at the top of the next prong. And so you can see here now I've come full circle, quite literally come full circle, and now the ends of my circle are touching, and I've got one complete top to my bezel. You can take your Rivoli at this point and set it in the bezel, and if you just hold it and give your thread a little tug, you'll see that it's about the same width as your Rivoli. So it's really not going to hold your Rivoli in at this point. It's too big for that. The opening here is too wide. Your Rivoli is just going to pop out. So we're going to continue here and close this up a bit. I'm going to pass through the next 3 15-ohs. And so again, I like to pass through where I started. So I went around and I came back to my starting point, and I like to go a little bit past that because it just gives you a little bit more leverage here when you pull your thread. So my thread is coming out now between the last seed bead in the set of 3 that's connecting my my prongs and one of the prongs. I'm going to skip over the bead in my prong and go through the next 3 seed beads, and again skip over the bead in the prong and go through the next 3 seed beads. So I'm just simply connecting the set of 3 seed beads that I use to connect my prongs. I'm going around my bezel, around the top of my bezel here, only connecting the 3 seed beads. And as you do that, you want to make sure that the seed beads in your prong are getting pushed out away from your Rivoli. So as you go through them, you want the thread that goes around that bead to go towards the center here. So it's facing, it's sitting on the inside here, and then your 15-0 to kind of get pushed out away from the bead, or from the Rivoli. So here I go again here through the next 3 seed beads, skipping over that prong, skip over the prong again, and through the next 3 seed beads. And now I'm back to where I started. And to just keep this tight and to get rid of any slack, I'm going to go through the next 3, skip over a prong again, go through the next 3. And if you keep going a little bit here, then that helps you just tighten it up and get rid of any slack you might have. Okay. So now here to start the next little row that we're going to do, and the final row for this bezel. Pass through the first 2 seed beads in the next set of 3. Pick up 1 15-0, and then in the next set of 3 here, we're going to go through the center bead, through that second bead. And that will now add 1 15-0 that's directly on top of the 11-0 or the 15-0 that we skipped in the last step. So we're going to pick up 1 15-0 and then through the center bead of the next set of 3. And as we pull, that 15-0 will sort of nestle itself here between our sections and sit above the 15-0 in the prong. And we're going to continue here all the way around till we get back to the beginning. And we want that 15-0 to sit on top of our Rivoli, which it should naturally want to do. But as you go around here, you can always just kind of give it a little press with your thumb just to hold it down and to make sure it sits in the right direction. Okay, adding another 15-0 here, and got just a couple more here to add. Just passing through the center 15-0 in those sections of 3. And here's my last one here. So here's where I started. And I'm going through this 15-0 here. And now as I come out, my thread is now sitting between the 15-0 that was that center bead and the first seed bead that I picked up in this row. You can always pass through a few more beads here, like we did on the last row. If you feel that you have any slack in your thread, if things seem loose, you can pass through a few more beads here and pull your thread a little tighter and cinch things up. There is our finished bezel. So now we need to attach our finished little bezeled Rivoli here to the rest of our piece. So if this is the first one that you're doing, of course, you won't have these other 4 pieces here. You'll just have, of course, your star. So we will attach this little guy here to our star. So go ahead and get to this point. You can, if you want to, go ahead and create all 5 pieces before you attach them and attach them all at once. It's really just a matter of preference here. Go ahead and get those 5 little Rivoli bezeled, and then we will attach them to our star. We're now ready to attach our Rivoli, our bezeled Rivoli, to our star base. You want your needle and thread coming out of one of the prongs through that 15-0 that we skipped as we created the top of the bezel. So you're going to have your needle and thread here coming out of that top 15-0 in that little triangle that we created for the prongs. Pick up a 15-0, and we're going to go back to using our 3mm pearls. Pick up one of those pearls and pick up another 15-0. Now between 2 of our branches here on our star, we're going to start on the right side, and we're going to pass up through the first 2 delicas. So we're taking our needle and thread through the first 2 delicas, pulling our thread towards the center of the star. Pick up another 15-0 and another 3mm round and another 15-0. Now make sure at this point that your bezel is facing up and you can see the color of the Rivoli, because you would hate to get this turned around and put this on the wrong side here, which can be very easy to do. So make sure that you've got this facing the right direction, and then pass through the 15-0, the same 15-0, the same 15-0 top of the prong here in the next prong over. So we're going to pass through that same 15-0 on the next prong over. Coming out the other side of that 15-0, we're going to pick up a 15-0, one of our 3mm pearls, and another 15-0 seed bead. On the left side here, on the left side of our star, we're going to go through those same 2 delicas that we passed through on the other side here through the right side, but we're going to go the opposite direction here. So we're now going towards us and away from the center of the star. So through those last 2 delicas. Coming out of those last 2 delicas, again, we're going to pick up a 15-0 pearl and a 15-0. And now we're going to go through the next 15-0 on that next prong. So through the 15-0 of the next prong. Now at this point, I'm going to go back through, I'm going to retrace my steps and go back through the pearls and 15-0s because I want to have another, a little bit more thread running through here. And I want to make this a little stiffer, just give it a little bit more of a, make it a little sturdier. So here I'm just going to kind of backtrack, you can think of it, and go back through my beads. And I'm just following the same thread path, just going back through. And you can see here that as you do this, you also have an opportunity to tighten things up. So I really enjoy, or I really like going back through this to make it sturdy and to give myself a chance to tighten things up so none of these are loose. They will flop around a bit on you at this point, but they shouldn't be loose and you shouldn't see any slack in your thread. So here I am now coming through the last, which was our first set of beads here, our 15-0 pearl and 15-0. And I'm going to go through my 15-0 here on my bezel. And now at this point, all I have to do is tie off my thread. So I'm going to take my needle and thread, and I'm actually going to take it to the back side of my piece and take my needle and thread through, through the project here, through the prong, and through the beads on the underside. And I'm going to travel through my seed beads until I meet back up with the tail thread here at the beginning. I'm going to make a little knot. Ideally a couple little knots here, 2 or 3 knots, because one knot is usually not good enough. It's not going to hold with just one. So you want to have a couple knots in there, and then you can tie or burn down your additional thread. So, so here I am now with my very ornate star. I'm going to show you here how to stiffen this up a little bit and put the finishing touches on it to make it a beautiful a brooch, a pin, a necklace, anything you want it to be. We're going to create a second attachment here for our bezel. The bezel here is, if I pick it up here, you can see that it's flopping a little bit now, which is not what we want. We want it to stay up and be kind of stiff like this one here. So you can see if I look to the side, this one is kind of staying put, and these are falling down. So we're going to correct that right now. We're going to start with the 5th delica from the end of the branch. So if we look at the end of the brunch, I have food on my brain. If we look at the end of the branch, we'll count 5 delicas up or back, however you want to look at it. And then I'll go through the one above it, the 6th delica here. Oops. I want to go the other way here. I want to make sure that my needle and thread are going away from me because I want to work towards the bezel here. So again, count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 delicas. Jump to the one after it here, that 6th one. And I'm adding a new piece of thread. So I'm going to take my needle and thread, go through that delica and through that delica again to use that as my stop bead, and that will anchor my thread here. And through the bead below it, which is my 5th delica, where I want to start for this connection. Coming out of the 5th delica, I'm going to pick up 5 of my 15-0 seed beads. And you can use any color that you already have in the project. I like using this red color because it is what I used for the 15-0 triangle here in between my branches. So I like that it just kind of extends that color. So coming out again of that 5th delica, I'm picking up 5 seed beads. And I'm just kind of repositioning this here. And I'm going to pass through the 15-0 here at the center between my center to my middle to pearls. So there's the top of the prong here, that 15-0, and I'm going to pass through that 15-0. And if it's getting a little stiff to pull through the 15-0s, because we have passed through them several times, you want to use a size needle that is an 11 or 12 so that you don't end up breaking your beads. Coming out the other side of that 15-0, we're going to pick up another 5 15-0s in our other color here. And we'll identify the same delica on the other side of, or on the side of the other branch here that is now sitting to the right. So again, I'm going to count up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I'm going to pass through that delica. I'm now going to take my needle and thread and go through those 5 seed beads again. So I'm just kind of turning around here, doing a little U-turn and going back through those 5 beads. And give your thread a little pull. And I'm going to skip the 15-0 and go through the side, or the 5 15-0s that I just added here in my other color. So I'm just reinforcing that V, and I'm skipping over that seed bead that was in the bezel. Go through the delica here at the end again. And now here you can add a pearl, you can add a crystal, anything you want. I'm going to continue here adding a pearl. So I'm going to add the same pearl that I've been using, my 3mm pearl. And I'm going to pass down through the first 2 15-0s and pick up that pearl. And I'm going to cross over to the other strand of 15-0s here that I have, the other side of my V. And I'm going to go up through the 2 15-0s here at the end, closest to my delica, and back through the delica, back down through the 5 15-0s on this side, and I'm going to pick up 1 15-0 and then back up through the 5 on the other side here. And adding that 1 delica at the end will just kind of make a nice little point on my V shape. So at this point, my connection is complete, and you can see now it's much stiffer and it will hold itself up. Now all I need to do is tie off this thread and continue with the other connections. You can also take your needle and thread and work through the project here to get to the next delica. I tend to like to just tie it off here since I have to go through so many beads, but you're absolutely welcome to do so. It's really just depends on what you're comfortable with. So I'm going to take my needle and thread here and just bring my 2 ends together and tie off my thread. And again, you're going to just cut this or burn this down with a thread burner, whatever you prefer. And before doing so, I'm going to take my needle and poke it through the project so that I can pull that extra thread to the back of my project and I can cut it off there. Just so that if I have any extra thread, if I have any little knots or anything extra hanging out there, I have that burned down, that cut off thread on the back side of my project instead of the front. So I'm going to continue on here and do the next few connections here that I need to make, and we'll see what that looks like when I'm done. Now that your star is done, you're going to decide how you want to use it in your jewelry. The simplest way to use it is to add a bail at the top and just make it into a pendant. And I'm going to show you how to do that in this video. But you can also make several of them and you can connect them together to make a necklace. And so you can kind of connect them, probably 1 or 2 on each side, to make a nice fun statement necklace. That's a great option if you have the time to do so. You can also connect it with something else on the side here and make it the center of a bracelet. You can do a beaded necklace and make this your pendant. So many different options. You can make it into a brooch, and you can put a pin back on the back here. So really, you have unlimited possibilities once you have the piece done. I'm going to show you here how to just add a wire guard at the top, and I'll throw a little jump ring on there since most people have, if you've got a collection of findings, most of you probably have a jump ring or a wire guard, and you can add that at the top if you are sort of in a hurry to finish or if that's all you need to finish here. So let's go ahead and add the wire guard and jump ring. Again, here starting with a new piece of thread, and you don't need very much at all for this. You're going to identify just which of your bezels you want to add the wire guard to. And we're going to add it to the bezel here so it hangs like this, and it will hang like a star. If we were to try to add it to someplace here in between, it would hang sort of upside down. So we want to hang it here at the top of one of the bezels. If you look at the side of the bezel, you want to find the two prongs here that sit directly opposite of where we attached to the star, to the big star. And we're going to find those two prongs. So you'll have one on the right and one on the left. And I'm actually going to go through the two seed beads here in those prongs, one on the right and one on the left. So I'm going to go through the side prongs, which we haven't used yet. And I'm going to go through one on the right and one on the left. So I'm going here in between two prongs. I'm going to go through this 1/15-0 on the right. And if you want to here, you can actually go through that 15-0 again. And that will be your stop bead. Oops, pulled my thread all the way through. So I'm going to do this again here. Take my needle and thread through that bead again. And that will help anchor my thread. So coming out of that seed bead here, I'm going to pick up my wire guard and go through one side of the wire guard. I'm going to take my needle and pass down through the other side of the wire guard, making sure that as I pull the thread sits in the little trough there, or the indent, between the two different sides here. And now I'm going to go to my seed bead here on the left and pass through that seed bead. And back up through the wire guard and over the top of the wire guard and down through the other side, through the 15-0 here at the base of this side of the wire guard, and then through the wire guard once more. You want to go through 2 or 3 times here just to reinforce it. Anytime you have a connection where there's going to be some wear and tear, or you're going to be connecting to another piece like a necklace, you just want to make sure you make that a little stronger. So here we are. And now my tail thread here is on the other side. Oops, excuse me. Tail thread here is on the other side. So I'll go through one more time so I can match up the ends of my thread and tie that off. So as I go down through here again, I'm going to give this a little pull, get a little tight here, use my pliers, and now I'm just simply going to tie the ends together, and again, cut or burn that down. And I'm going to take my needle, and I like to pass through a few beads here so that I pull the knot that I just made into some beads, or close between the beads. So we'll cut that extra thread off and burn that down. So now you've got a wire guard here with the hole facing you. So in order to hang something on here, we want to have it sort of going the other direction. We want the opening to go the other direction here so that when we hang something, it'll hang the right direction. So here, if you see, if I were to use my needle here as a necklace and I were to thread a necklace through here, it would hang the opposite way of what I wanted to. It'll hang kind of back to front here. And I want it to hang side to side. So what I'm going to do is add a jump ring to the top. You can add a jump ring, you can attach a bail, and you just want to pay attention to how the hole is sitting. If you have a bail that you want to attach, oftentimes the bails will already have the hole or the bail part situated the way that you need it to, the way that you need it to be in order for this to hang correctly. So you may only just need the bail, you don't need a second piece. Here, since my wire guard is facing the way that it is, I'm going to use a jump ring here, which I've opened. And the jump ring here is very easy to open and close. I'm going to close this up again. You've got a ring here, and I like to think of it like a slinky. So when you grip on either side of the opening or the cut in the jump ring, and you just twist the ends apart. So it's kind of like uncoiling a slinky. And we're going to put this on our little wire guard. And then we're going to grip the ends again and bring them back together. And now I've got a ring here hanging the right direction. So again, if I were to pretend that this needle is my necklace and I pick that up, I put my necklace here through the ring, it's going to hang the way that I want it to. And it's going to hang facing forward. So there you go. We are now completely done with this piece. All I have to do here is find a necklace I want to put it on, or I can bead a little necklace. And like I said, you can also use a bail that's made for this kind of thing. And a lot of times the bails are really pretty, so you may want to find a nice bail. But here's the simplest way to finish it. You can also use this like an ornament, so you can add an additional little S hook at the top here, or one of the ornament hangers that you have for ornaments on Christmas trees, and add that to the ring there and hang it on your tree or in your window, someplace wherever you'd like to see this.